everything you need to know about My Hero Academia Vigilantes. Surprisingly, we're getting an anime adaptation of My Hero Academia Vigilantes, or My Hero Academia Illegals as it's known in Japan. All this video plans to do is briefly explain what is an illegal, aka a vigilante, in the world of MHA, who are the vigilantes that we follow, and what should we expect these vigilantes to do. So let's answer some of these questions. First question a lot of people ask when seeing a spin-off of a main series, is it canon? Very much so. The events that occur in this story explain and give more understanding and context to plot points in the main series, such as the Nomus and Horikoshi himself had input and final say on each chapter, so it is very much canon. It's a spin-off prequel that takes place 5 years before the main events of My Hero Academia, and as a result we see a lot of stuff here that acts as precursors for events that happen in not just the main series but also the movies, which were also canonized in the latter half of the main series. For example, the drug we see during the Overhaul arc that makes people's quirks exponentially stronger, as well as some of All For One's other experiments, and on top of that we get to see more of the pro heroes when they're a little bit younger. We see more of All Might before his timer was significantly cut down. We also see Endeavor when he was much more of a crude dude, but overall this fits into the canon pretty well. What is a vigilante? Well, there are two answers to that question. The first answer we get is the literary definition that we get presented to us by, who else? Present Mike. Vigilante. Just what is a vigilante? Vigilante, one who voluntarily takes action outside of the jurisdiction of the law in the name of public order. They first emerged at the dawn of this paranormal era as the origin of today's heroes. However, in the modern era where the official authorization of heroes has long been established, they are 100% illegal. Are they allies of justice, criminals, a bunch of maniacs, valiant heroes? The truth is up to you to confirm with your very own eyes. The second answer we get to this question, what is a vigilante, is given to us early on from a very interesting history lesson. The exposition we get is regarding how the hero systems were initially made, which is pretty cool. During the time when quirks originally manifested, only vigilantes existed, but over time, as the chaos caused by the sudden introduction of quirks subsided, governmental bodies attempting to regulate these vigilantes pretty much deemed most of these unregulated heroes as quirk-wielding villains. The funny example given here is that the first ever hero registration system occurred in Rhode Island in America, and despite the fact there were 189 vigilantes, only 7 of these vigilantes could be acknowledged by the state as officially licensed heroes. This isn't because over 180 of these vigilantes were deemed as evil, it's because the intention behind the hero system initially was not to reward and acknowledge heroism, it was to control and limit quirk usage as a whole. Anyone who uses their quirk without authorization is a villain, plain and simple. If you have authorization, aka a license, you are a hero, and as a result, vigilantes, those without licenses, are deemed as villains regardless of their intent, meaning that this hero system isn't there to strictly reward those who are heroic and deserve to be heroes. It's a way to control and enforce restrictions on quirks on a governmental level. However, that's on a governmental and bureaucratic level. On a more social level, the vigilantes in the more modern times we see in this series, like the Crawler, our main character, they are seen as local heroes and legends by their communities, despite their actions technically being illegal in the eyes of the law, as they use their quirks without a license, though to protect other people, our main characters. These vigilantes are loved by those they save, but at the same time, hated by the law. Whilst law like this isn't everyone's cup of tea, I absolutely adore details like this about the hero system and its history. It is something that is core to My Hero's identity, as it is explored a bit in the main series, but here we get more of an explanation how these systems came into place originally, just coming from good-hearted people when a system didn't exist to regulate them, to then becoming this huge governmental body that every kid aims to be a part of. Who are our main characters? Koichi Himawari, aka the Crawler, a 19-year-old college student who acts as a local hero without a license, picking up trash, helping ladies with their shopping, including Deku's mom of all people, which is kind of a nice little reference. Our MC here is not a fighter, he's more of a supporter. This is because of his quirk. He ain't Detroit smashing or one-for-alling his way out of situations like Deku, at least not at the start. He can't really do damage. He just speeds around like a cockroach with his quirk, glide or sliding, depending on your translation. If he's touching a surface in at least 3 places, he can move on it, around the speed of a bike. This doesn't seem like much on the surface, but it's kind of like One for All and all the other quirks of the class 1A, in the sense that it has numerous applications after our main character Koichi gets some tutelage from other characters to broaden the possibilities and uses of his quirk. It's pretty neat. Knuckle Duster. If All Might is the Superman of this world, he is its Batman, with a good helping of Rorschach and the Punisher sprinkled in. I mean, look at his trench coat and look at him with his weapons. The most intriguing quirk about this guy is his lack of quirk. He's powerless. Yet despite that fact, he goes around punching any villain he can because it just feels damn good. Pretty cool character with a lot of mystery surrounding him, which you'll find more about if you watch and or read the series. Pop Step, aka Kazuo Hanayama. She's a pop idol, and she uses her quirk during her performances. She's also technically breaking the law. Her quirk itself is called Bound or Leap. Basically, she can jump really high if she's on a solid surface, and if her quirk is activated, she won't take damage from the fall. She can just leap really far. But if she doesn't use her quirk to start the jump, or she gets thrown off a building, for example, she will take damage from the fall. So she can jump high, hence why she isn't really in any of the battles for the most part. She just kind of goes on patrols with Crawler and Knuckle Duster, using her quirk to get to high places and get better views of the areas, as well as help inform people during disasters and villain attacks. She's more of a street performer overall. I mean, she quickly gets a fan club and all that, but she also helps out on patrols, acting as bait and just helping investigate the new drug that is flooding the streets. What should you expect? Well, this series is going to be 13 episodes long apparently, just like the main series, and as a result we can kind of use the main series as a guideline. First season of My Hero Academia covered around 22 chapters or so, going through the hero exams, the combat training, as well as the first League of Villains attack. Around 22 chapters are translated into the anime, and it's a good finishing point for the first season, as it means the second season can start off with the sports festival almost immediately. With Vigilantes, I think it'll cover around 26 to 27 chapters, as it should conclude the first major arc alongside some smaller arcs before that, like the Stendhal stuff, which is pretty cool. In these 26 or 27 chapters, as well as these 13 episodes, what will you see? Without major spoilers, obviously. We get to see a good chunk more of the pro heroes actually doing their jobs. Like any of your favourites you've probably seen before, you'll see them here again. Most prominent of which is, surprisingly enough, Ingenium. Are
the two of you familiar with the turbo hero Ingenium?
10 years older brother Tensei. He has a prominent role earlier on in this series, so he'll show up a good chunk during this first season, as well as Aizawa of all people. In the earlier part of the plot he shows up a good chunk, but he shows up even more later on, to the point that around the chapter 60 mark or so, he gets his own flashback showing us his time during his own work studies when he was a youth, as well as more stuff surrounding him, Present Mike and Shirakumo. But back to what you'll actually see in the anime. We'll be seeing Captain Celebrity animated, which is really cool, as the main series doesn't show us nowhere near enough of the American heroes that exist in the world of MHA, and this absolute Chad is one of the top ranked heroes in America. His quirk and his personality are really cool, and trust me when I say this, he might seem scruffy on the surface, but he's the absolute goat. Just trust me, right? And think about it. As I said in the intro, America was one of the first to come up with the whole hero society and governing system, yet the amount of American heroes we know are surprisingly slim, and Captain Celebrity gives us a cool glimpse into that world of American heroism, which is really neat. Tsukauchi, I think how you pronounce it, is also here in the story a lot. The detective dude who knows about All Might and all that. We also see how he met All Might, as well as found out his secret about his powers weakening. With this, we learn a good chunk more about All Might himself, as well as his philosophy when acting as a hero, which is pretty cool. And since this is really early on, within like the first 5 or 6 chapters, I can't wait to see this actually animated. I'm very excited to see all this stuff about All Might animated. So cool. Just like how we see in the main series, even past the first season, we see Deku's quirk slowly evolve and add more applications of One for All. Look at sliding the same way. Whilst it isn't the most flashy thing at first, we see it evolve, and even within the realms of the first season, it still will change and get a good chunk stronger. It's a pretty cool ability that slowly evolves and develops alongside the story, which is something I look forward to. And also remember that drug I mentioned earlier? Well, remember during the Overhaul arc how it started with this new drug flooding the streets, and Kirishima and Fatgum and all that trying to stop someone who was using it. The drug itself obviously making normal people and fodder, making their quirks really strong, but it is first introduced here. Knuckle Duster, our main man here, is going around beating up thugs and checking their tongues to find out who's dealing it, as one of the identifiers of a user of this drug is them having a black tongue. Overall, however, I'd say that Vigilantes has a slightly darker tone than the main series. It's not night and day or anything, but this, this isn't Berserk, right, okay? The earlier parts of My Hero have an almost childlike wonder to them. It retains its bright colour palette and aesthetic throughout the earlier arcs of My Hero, and it gets a bit of a more darker tone as the story progresses, whilst My Hero Vigilantes is a bit grim from the get-go. You see people cut off their own body parts, corpses filled with bees. As I say, it's not something like Tokyo Ghoul, or something of that degree where there's blood, guts and gore every chapter, but this series does have its moments, It has some pretty brutal stuff. Mild spoilers for the later seasons of MHA and the war and stuff. Remember when Shigaraki gets burnt to bits by Endeavor? There are plenty more moments like that. I mean, Endeavor shows up a good chunk later on in the story, and this is pre-redemption arc Endeavor. This takes place 5 years before My Hero Academia. So Endeavor here takes no prisoners, so you can imagine what he's going to do to people. In conclusion though, what should you expect when watching or reading this series? Because at this point, this video is also kind of a recommendation to read the series as well as watch it when it comes out. But yeah, what should you expect from My Hero Academia Vigilantes? A cool spin-off prequel that gives you a bit more exposition around the establishment of the hero system and the world it created, context and background showing us the build build up for some of All For One's actions later on in the series, learning more about heroes that we knew about and some we didn't, which are really cool and interesting. It's a fun ride, and just by looking at this trailer, it's much more stylized than the main series and it looks absolutely gorgeous, so I can't wait to watch it. At the end of the day though, it's more My Hero stuff to enjoy, and I think if you like the main series, there shouldn't be a reason to at not least give Vigilantes a try. With that being said, here's my doodles. Hopefully see you in the next one, and hopefully you enjoy the episodes. Peace.